Well, let's talk about this show, why don't we? Hey everybody, Brian Zane here, and this is my review for AEW All Out. I want to thank everybody for their patience and understanding. I did make it known that I was going to be on vacation during Labor Day weekend, which meant I was going to miss All Out, and I was upset about that as well, but I carried on and had a great time with my family on the Oregon coast. It was a very nice time, and I'm ready now to get back into the swing of things. I didn't have time at all this week to watch All Out until I was on the flight to Philadelphia, where I am right now for Death Before Dishonor happening tomorrow night from when I'm recording this. So I want to get this review out because I know a lot of you were waiting for it. So again, thank you all so much for so patiently waiting. Most of you, that is, because there was a surprising number of y'all who reached out to me on social media, and you seemed genuinely upset that I would dare miss a wrestling show to be with my family. To those people, y'all are weird, okay? Acting very entitled. Don't do that. But with that out of the way, let's talk about what happened this past weekend in Chicago. All Out, the lights on bright, very raucous crowd all evening, and a lot of hype going into this one before and after. All I've been seeing online since the show happened was this is the greatest show since WrestleMania 17 or in the last 20 years, greatest all time. So yeah, a lot of hype and expectations going into this show. So I try to temper those expectations going into this thing. The show begins officially with the TNT Championship match as Miro defends against Eddie Kingston, who Miro specifically called out, and that's what basically brought about this match on this night. I love Kingston's Redeem D's Nuts shirt that he wore in response to the Redeemer, Miro. The story here is great too. Kingston, the tough guy that he is, not afraid from the jump, just throwing punches and has the head and shoulder suplex early on. I love the cutoff when Miro catches him in midair as he dives off the apron and power slams him on the floor. Also, I think the story of how Miro sold for Eddie was one of my favorite parts in this thing, where the first couple of chops he's no-selling them, then finally one of them he just delays, starts caving in after that. I thought that was just really good. Just the body language was what I really appreciate about this matchup. It's a very rugged affair, a lot of hard strikes with both guys, and the crowd was just so into this thing. They were rooting on Kingston as he was in the game over, gets the rope break. Close call when he hits the back fist and the DDT, which they have been selling all match. That's his weakness, is Miro's, and so Kingston's going to work to the DDT, and he hits it, and the crowd's totally there for it. But then referee Bryce is out of position because he's fixing the turnbuckle pad, and the crowd's furious at him. They're chanting, "You fucked up" at Bryce because he was not there in time to make the 3 count. And Kingston wants to throw Miro into the exposed turnbuckle. Bryce won't let him do it. Man, Bryce is like the heel ref tonight basically in this matchup because he's just blocking Kingston at every turn here. But Miro takes Eddie to Dick Kick City, hits the kick to retain the matchup. This was a great opener. I give 4 stars out of 5. I love the physicality in this match, and more so than that, and this will help explain the rating of the next matchup. I just love the story they told here between the two wrestlers, the referee. Kudos to commentary for helping flesh that out because that doesn't happen all the time. And then, of course, the crowd just kind of buying into it as well. Very fun opener with 2 just great characters. In the next match, Jon Moxley opens the forbidden door once again to take on Satoshi Kojima, one of the most decorated champions in Japanese wrestling history and the leader of Bread Club. And of course, Moxley is the new GCW champion, having beat Matt Cardona for it a week or 2 ago, and he's even wearing the GCW hoodie on the way to the ring. So nice little bit of exposure for Game Changer Wrestling just in the intro alone. And much like the last match, this one also very hard hitting from the start. Kojima flexing his pecs a little bit early on. Nice elbow drop from the top rope that he hits as this match goes on too. Kojima hits this big DDT on the apron, blocks a paradigm shift and hits a brain buster. Some lariats are exchanged. I like how Moxley hitting some lariats of his own, but Kojima just completely unfazed by it, but he hits one of his own. Not even the lethal one. Excalibur points out the left one, that's bad enough. The right one, oh, that's a deadly one. So he didn't hit him with that just yet. Some great back and forth here. Moxley catching another lariat attempt into one, and then a second paradigm shift for the win. Then after the match, Moxley bows and shows respect to his fallen opponent when suddenly Minoru Suzuki's music plays. Kazanina motherfucking Ray, the murder grandpa himself, makes his way to the arena. And The crowd's nuts for this. I do wish the announcers had shut up a little bit during this reveal thing. The whole sequence just felt kind of ropey to me because you hear the music hit, his name shows up on the screen, the fans are already going nuts, but then the announcers have to play dumb for like 20 more seconds going, who is that? Is that who I think it is? I don't, who? And then like Suzuki takes forever to come out, and like, but then the fans already are reacting, but Moxley and the announcers can't react the way the crowd is. And then when Suzuki shows up, they won't shut up. Like the announcers just keep talking and talking. It's one of those moments where, can one of you shut up for just a minute and like let this whole thing like breathe just for a little bit? So anyway, Suzuki stares down Moxley. They trade some strikes. They have a laugh about it. And in the end, Suzuki takes down Moxley with the Gotch-style pile driver to end the segment here. And of course, they would have their match that following Wednesday on Dynamite, and that was rad. But that being said, I'm going to give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. This was also a very physical match, lots of big hard strikes, but if we're comparing just straight up storytelling from this to the previous match, I have to give a slight edge to the TNT title one, just because I think the story in that one was a bit more fleshed out, and this one was just a thing where it's like, Moxley just goes, I'm calling Kojima out, and okay, it's happening. So not as much heat to that, say, as the TNT title match. That said, the Suzuki reveal at the end was cool. It seems at this rate, I think, Tony Khan has joked that he is the Forbidden Door, but I think John Moxley is the Forbidden Door, because it seems all these Japanese legends seem to be running almost exclusively through him. It's Dentist versus Alien as Dr. Britt Baker defends the Women's Championship against Kris Statlander. Kris is accompanied by Orange Cassidy, and then Britt's accompanied by Rebel and Jamie Hayter. Rebel just screaming the entire time as this match goes on. Whether Britt's on top or not, you can always hear Rebel yelling at ringside. Orange Cassidy is moving a lot more than he normally does, and that actually it almost gives it away a little bit at this one dramatic point in the match here. But this is a very good match. Great back and forth with these two ladies. I love this DDT that Britt hits and the way that Kris sells it. As Excalibur puts it, almost on her forehead, like the way her head bent back just a little bit after she planted herself made it look extra sick there. Then you've got this Kris on this big run, hits the electric chair drop and the axe kick. She goes for a moonsault off the apron and whiffs it, and Britt with a stomp off the stairs onto the floor. Very devastating. And so she's out for a long time, and here's that moment with Orange Cassidy where he takes the sunglasses off and is like, Kris, get up. Like, he's the most animated he's ever been, the loudest he's ever been. And like, that was almost a moment they kind of threw away there. It was not like dwelled upon that much, but I mean, that's kind of a rare out of character moment for Orange, and I thought that was just interesting that they didn't focus on that a little bit more. The biggest moment here, though, Britt hitting the Panama Sunrise, or the Pittsburgh Sunrise as it's called here. Shout out to, Adam Cole Bay, her boyfriend, but Kris kicks out of that and the stomp, but then Britt puts in the lockjaw to make Kris tap out, and the champion retains. I give this one 4 stars out of 5 as well. I just appreciate these two beating the hell out of each other, taking some big risks in this match, both of them did, and it was a sight to see. I think this was had to be one of the best matches that Britt has had in AEW, and definitely the best one I've seen out of Kris since she's been back. I think that they both really brought it here, and yeah, not much else to say about it. It's just kind of like, I wish that whatever Britt's doing with the championship right now, I wish it was a bit more involved, because it feels like she's the champion and she has these matches, but no real angles at the moment, if that makes sense. Well, the advertised match of Pac and Andrade was preempted on Sunday because of Pac apparently having travel issues, and we get this backstage interview with Andrade and his crew, and Andrade is asked if he's responsible for these travel issues, and he denies it, but Chavo Guerrero's body language is very shady. He seems to know something that we don't, but basically Chavo says that Pac is a coward, and Andrade wants this match to happen on Rampage, which does happen. It happened a day ago from when I'm filming this, and that was as good as advertised. Then we go to the steel cage match for the tag team championships, and folks, this is unequivocally the match of the night, no question, in my opinion. The Young Bucks defending against the Lucha Brothers, who actually get a special musical accompaniment for their entrance tonight. You've got Mikey Ruckus, Molesta Gallo, and the Lucha Brothers Dancers was the best name I could come up with them. They do this whole routine, and I love the entrance gear that Penta and Phoenix have as well. What's JR's commentary on the intro? Well thought out. There's just way too much wild shit in this match to call to even really do this stuff justice. I will try my best, but I mean, all 4 guys eat a lot of steel early on, and they're just flying all over the place here. Phoenix is just every time the camera focused on him, my jaw dropped. He was always doing something crazy. Also, I did appreciate that Don Callis joined on commentary for this one. He was the only match he did commentary for. He had some good moments here. I love, like, JR's calling this chain the Bucks brought in contraband, and Callis goes, how can it be contraband if it's legal in this cage match? And JR goes, well, in the traditional sense. Also, like, Callis is talking about the Great Brother tag teams, and then JR says, how about the McGuire twins? And Callis goes, why don't you bring up the Mulkeys next? The Bucks are fighting real dirty in this match. There's the aforementioned chain that I talked about. There's this double submission, like through the ropes on Penta that Phoenix has to break up. Very pretty tombstone flipping senton combo a few minutes later. Matt takes both Lucha Brothers to Dick Kick City at one point to get the more bang for your buck and a kick out. At one point, Tony telling Callis, stop with the bullshit. And Excalibur tries to apologize for the salty language on his behalf, and Tony's like, no, don't apologize. I hate this asshole. Brandon Cutler throwing a bag into the ring. Matt pulls out what's inside. It's the thumbtack shoe. We had seen it before at Road Rager, and also it was famous in PWG as well. So Matt puts on the gimmicked shoe, and they grind it into Penta's face. Penta looks so gross with all the blood and the makeup combined and everything, the mask all torn up. Phoenix barely saving his brother from the BTE trigger defeat. The crowd is just electric for this thing at this point. Phoenix grabs the shoe, decks the Bucks with it, and both the Lucha Bros are bleeding now, by the way. Matt and Penta, there's a couple of moments here, but I love this one in particular where Matt and Penta are looking at each other across the apron as each man has the other's brother ready for like a pile driver on the apron and stuff. There's a Canadian Destroyer off the top by Penta, which is very impressive. An absolutely ridiculous like super kick sequence with all four guys, and there's a pinfall after the Fear Factor. That gets broken up, very dramatic. Phoenix climbs to the top of the cage, which this AEW cage, it's a lot taller than like the WWE cage, for example, and he just dives off that sucker onto everyone. Nick gets dropped one more time. The Lucha Brothers win and are the new tag team champions in a hellacious match. 5 stars out of 5, easily. Incredible match. Unbelievable athleticism and quickness, some wild violence, crazy double take moments peppered throughout, and this was a human highlight reel from start to finish, and I loved it, and the crowd did too. Those guys left it all in the ring, and easily the best match of the night. On we go to the Women's Casino Battle Royal, where the winner will get a future title shot against Britt Baker. The first suit is clubs, and so I'm looking at my notes now. You got Hikaru Shida, local favorite Sky Blue, Emi Sakura, the Bunny, and Abaddon. Time passes. This is kind of an uneventful battle royal for the most part here, but it's time for the Diamonds suit. You got Anna Jay, Kiera Hogan, Kylan King, Diamante, and Nyla Rose, who do not get proper entrances. The first wave of suits, like they get like solo entrances, the whole shebang, and then like everyone, you hear the music and like you barely hear Justin Roberts as they're just running in. You might see the name key if you're lucky. And then as the match goes on, we get some dueling "we want Tessa, no we don't" chants, and then by the end, the "no we don'ters" are just like drowning out the former there. Next suit is Hearts. That's Thunder Rosa, Penelope Ford, or my favorite pronunciation, Penelope Ford, Riho, Jamie Hayter, and Big Swole. Swole with probably the low-key wildest elimination I've seen in this matchup, where she just a running, battering ram style headbutt to Diamante to knock her off the apron. It's like, that seems like so little room for error with just a battering ram headbutt there. It's time for the spades. You've got Ty Conti, Red Velvet, Layla Hirsch, Jade Cargill, and Rebel. Hirsch showing off her impressive strength, hitting a German suplex on Nia right out the gate, but Jade then just picks up Layla and hucks her to the outside onto some other people. And like, again, the size difference, very similar to the Camille Hirsch match on Empower a couple of weeks ago. Like for Jade, this like Amazon woman, to be taking this little woman like Layla Hirsch and just picking her up like nothing was very impressive. We're finally down to the Joker card, and it's Ruby Soho, the former Ruby Riott from WWE, making her big debut in AEW to a big partisan crowd who absolutely loves that she is here. And by the way, once again, props to AEW for, not being afraid to pay a little extra money for the licensed music so you get the song by Rancid there. Nyla eliminates Cargill to a big pop. Ty eliminates Penelope. It celebrates too long, gets eliminated, which is like at least the third time we saw that spot, that particular order of things, where it's like, elimination, I'm gonna talk trash to this person and keep my eye off the ball. Whoop, now I get eliminated. Thunder Rosa kicks Nyla off the apron, so we're down to Rosa and Ruby. Some good back and forth, has that dramatic fight on the apron, finally ending with Ruby hitting her not Riot kick anymore, and she eliminates Thunder, and she is the last woman standing, wins the matchup here. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars out of 5. It felt alright for a Battle Royal. The more I see the Casino Battle Royal format, the more I get kind of used to it, and just kind of like, okay, this is how it is now. There was a lot of repetition in some of those eliminations, like I mentioned, the whole, like, you know, getting distracted and getting thrown up just after you eliminated somebody, and, you know, the dramatic fight on the apron, it's been done. It's like, it's there a dramatic fight on the apron, or there's like, you do that, and then, oh, someone's sneaking up from underneath. If I ever book a wrestling show, here's how I'm going to book a Battle Royal. I'm going to do that spot where somebody is hiding under the ring, gets in there, dumps the last person out, they think they won, but then someone else who's hiding under the ring shows up, gets in there, dumps that person out, they think they've won, oh, but then there's one person still hiding and they dump that person out. So I want to do that spot so many times that we kill it forever and no one ever does it again. Wow, sorry about that sidebar. Anyway, I think Ruby's debut was really cool, and I'm very excited to see how she does in AEW. I think she had a great look and a potential appeal that was like kind of missed out on in WWE. So I really want to see how she does here. Let's hope she has a higher ceiling in her new home. On we go to the final fight, MJF versus Chris Jericho, where if MJF wins, Jericho will never be allowed to wrestle in AEW again. Each guy gets a unique intro for this show. We get the Millennium Countdown to start things off, but it's just MJF trolling the fans, of course, and I thought that was pretty brilliant. And then Jericho's intro was basically, it was his guitarist from Fozzy playing the tune, the melody to Judas, and the crowd not being able to follow it very well. So the sing-along didn't work quite as well as normal. This is why drummers and bassists are very important, folks. So I think in terms of just between these two guys from the get-go, MJF wins on the intro alone. It starts out with some wrestling at first, but then of course it goes to the outside and a brawl. Jericho at one point picking up like one of those barricade things, a stanchion, just like drops it on MJF's head. That looked so scary. We get some good back and forth with these two, taking turns on the offensive. MJF working on Jericho's tender arm, while MJF kind of gets his back worked over, or kind of like self-inflicted stuff, but just kind of over time, his back becomes a liability. At one point, MJF doing the Fargo strut, which I'm like, that doesn't seem relevant in this match because there are no flares or Fargos anywhere in sight. At one point, MJF shocked me. He goes for an Acai moonsault to the outside, lands on his feet, and then Jericho picks him up and powerbombs him on the apron. That whole sequence is like, whoa, I've never seen either of these guys do that before. That was really impressive. You got MJF catching Jericho with a code breaker out of a flying nothing attempt. Jericho later on going for a top rope hurricane rana, but MJF hits the sit-out powerbomb, which again weakens his tailbone, his lower back. Out comes Wardlow, but then Jake Hager makes the save. MJF grabs Jericho's bat and decks him with it, and Jericho with one of the calls of the night. Has Floyd turned on Jericho? MJF with the Judas effect, the cover. There's a 3 count, but Jericho puts his foot on the rope. Aubrey Edwards does not see it, makes a 3 count anyway. So you think MJF has won, and we are in the darkest timeline. But then referee Paul Turner shows up and tells Aubrey what had happened. And the moment fans see Paul Turner talking, they just start going nuts because they know what's going to happen here. So the match is restarted. MJF gets the armbar onto Jericho. Things look to be dire, but Jericho fights out of it and gets the walls of Jericho locked in. And for a brief moment, it looks like he's going to try and transition into the Lion Tamer, like the OG version of WCW, but he doesn't quite. He's like tired, so he just goes back into the walls. But it's fine because MJF taps out and Jericho wins, thereby saving his career. I give this one 4 stars out of 5. This was a really good match. A lot of emotional highs and lows from, like, honestly, from the intro to the final bell. Like, there was just a roller coaster of emotions and just different like vibes as this thing went on. Love the story in this one, and really the match itself felt like a very satisfying end to this year-long program between the two. It's crazy to think how long these guys have been involved in storyline as partners or as opponents, then partners, and then as opponents again, and just all the different battles over these months, the 5 layers of Jericho, you know, blood and guts, stadium stampede. It's been through a lot of stuff, like the serious and the silly. I think on the whole, like now this is wrapped up, I can say it's probably been one of my favorite angles in AEW thus far. And commitment to them to be able, or kudos to them, I should say, for having the commitment to do this for as long as they did. MJF, him him losing, it's not the end of the world. He still comes off at the end of this thing smelling like a rose because this has made him a huge star. The fans absolutely hate him. They're so happy he finally got his. It's his first singles loss since Jon Moxley last year, so MJF's not going anywhere in the grand scheme of things, and he's been built into this star by Jericho, and there's so much mileage left for him, and I'm just really excited. I think everything worked well, just all told for the storyline, and I really enjoyed this match. When we go to the match that a lot of people tuned in to see, this is CM Punk's in-ring debut for AEW, and it's the first wrestling match he's had in 7 years as he takes on Darby Allin in singles action. Kind of a generational matchup of sorts here, and he debuts the long tights, does Punk, and I think it's a good look. Early in the match here, they recreate the arm drag spot with Bret Hart and 1-2-3 Kid from Raw in 1994. Nice little touch there. The fans love Darby, but they love CM Punk a whole lot more in Chicago. So I think the fans are pretty respectful for both guys. Darby rarely, if ever, gets booed in this match, I think, because he's that pure of a babyface. The match starts off very methodical and grapply, and then later on, Punk just hurls Darby into the ring post, and the way Darby takes it onto his back is pretty gross. I don't think I've ever seen it done that way, but that was impressive. Punk just works over Darby with holds like bow and arrow, abdominal stretch, chin lock, and everything. Darby comes back like a stunner move and goes on a nice run. Punk with a GTS out of nowhere, but then Darby just falls out of the ring, but he barely gets back in time. Huge flipping senton off the top and to the outside on Punk. Darby mocks the GTS taunt and goes for his own coffin drop, but Punk sits up. GTS blocked and countered into a Last Supper. Gets very kind of a lot of close near falls near the end here. In the end, though, Darby goes to the Poison Rana. Punk slips out of it, hits one more GTS to win the match. So hard-fought victory here. Sting, who let Darby kind of handle it on his own in the match, he comes back out afterward and shakes Punk's hand, and they both help Darby up together. So very pure babyface match this was. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars out of 5. It was very cool to see Punk back, and it's it's one of those old sayings, how can we miss you if you never go away? Well, Punk went away for a very long time. So to see him come back there and still be pretty close to his true form, I think he was maybe a half step back from the pace we're used to seeing him. It was a match that was designed to be a little slow, but I think he still looked good out there. Darby was a great foil for him, and it just elevates his stock so much more now that he's, for this match with Punk, this high-profile thing. So it's clearly, they put a lot of faith into Darby and Punk, and I think the whole thing worked really well. Well, this next one's the piss break match, folks. There's no two ways about it. Paul Wight taking on QT Marshall. This one was a match that was clearly put in this place for a very specific reason of, A, it's like a palate cleanser between the CM Punk match and the main event, and also, well, if the show's going a bit heavy, let's make it a short match, and if the show's a bit light, let's pad it out a little bit. So this match was, given probably more time than it needed. I felt bad for Paul Wight, seeing him, the way he walked out there, they put over his 5 hip surgeries. Yeah, it looks like he's got 5 hip surgeries. I haven't felt this bad seeing somebody walk to the ring since Woken Matt Hardy in WWE. It looked pretty painful, and given that, I don't know why they had him take bumps in this thing. He took a bump, basically. QT took him down to a knee, and then made him go on his back, but I think for a match this short, you shouldn't have had Paul do that. I think QT should have just bounced off him, and that was really all it was. And then, Paul, he gets taken down, but then he gets right back up and takes down Camarado and Aaron Solo, and then chokeslams QT, and that was it. It's why did you even have him go down for that? I thought that was a little unnecessary, because we all know what this match is going to be anyway. I give it a 0.5 star out of 5. Was there any doubt? On the other hand, though, I have to, say God bless Paul Wight and QT Marshall, because it's a very unenviable, thankless job they were given, and you know what? They did it, and for just kind of a throwaway match, yeah, there you go. Then we go to our main event, AEW World Title match. Kenny Omega defending against the man who beat him for the Impact title a few weeks ago on Rampage, Christian Cage. Will lightning strike twice? We're about to find out. The match starts off, it goes to the outside very early on, and Callis has got the referee distracted, and so Omega hits this double stomp onto Christian with a table laying on top of him, and then Kenny yells, "Did I do that?" into the camera, that Steve Urkel quote there. So you see, it's references like that is why Kenny Omega is number 1 in the PWI 500, folks. Omega works Cage over on the outside. He goes for a moonsault. There's kind of a nice little cover here, or recover, I should say, because he goes for the moonsault at the barricade, slips, catches himself, collects himself, then he pulls it off just fine. Christian with a lot of big bumps for Omega in this thing. The chest first into the turnbuckle, the Ushigoroshi. One of my favorite parts in this match is when Christian escapes the "you can't escape" and hits a reverse DDT, and the crowd chants, "he escaped." The crowd has just been on the ball for this show the entire time. Cage comes back with the tornado DDT, but he is snuffed out soon afterward there, and Kenny hitting the Snapdragons goes to the point, but then Christian gives him the single deuce in response, so he takes another Snapdragon for his efforts. The V triggers are flying and the head's getting rocked around a lot. Fighting on the apron, Christian spears Omega off and through a table on the floor, and then a couple more spears by Christian in the ring, but he can't put the champion away. The frog splash is blocked, both men are spent, many more V triggers. Then the rest of the Super Elite try to interfere, but it doesn't really pull off. Christian's got the resolve, hits the kill switch on Omega, but we get a kick out. Callis actually gets in the ring and Christian chases him out. Christian goes for a top rope kill switch, but Kenny cuts him off and hits a top rope one-winged angel, or second rope, I'm sorry, either one, avalanche one-winged angel to win and retain. No one's getting up from the super one-winged angel there. And so, yeah, I give it 4 stars out of 5. I felt this match dragged a little bit at times. I think they could have shaved 5 minutes off that match and it would have been stronger. But when it didn't drag, the action was impactful and intense. They worked their asses off in this thing. So good job by both. So the Bucks and the Good Brothers show up to celebrate. They beat down Christian some more. The Jurassic Express try and make the save, but then they get beaten up. Omega on the microphone saying, everybody, anyone who could possibly take him on are either somewhere else, they're retired, or they're dead. The lights cut out. Suddenly, Adam Cole Bay makes his AEW debut, and it's a massive ovation for this man who, in an alternate timeline, would be Keith Lee's manager right now. Think about that and then wonder, gosh, how could WWE have let Adam Cole slip through their fingers? So we get that stare down where it looks like Cole's going to be confronting Omega, but psych, he super kicks Jungle Boy instead. It was a setup. He's part of the Elite. There's a moment where the Young Bucks kiss Cole on either side on the cheek, and it wasn't until that moment where I realized, holy shit, Adam Cole's got a huge mouth. Like, good lord, the mouth in that guy, it's like bigger than his face. Anyway, Omega and Cole kind of, they taunt about what happened. Omega quotes Urkel again, saying, did I do that? In case the live crowd didn't hear that very stellar Urkel reference he made a couple of minutes into the match itself. So Adam says the Elite is very dominant and no one can beat them. And before Omega wraps it up, though, suddenly we hear a remixed version, whether it's good or bad, take it for what you will, remixed version of Flight of the Valkyrie, and it's Bryan Danielson. I mean, God, talk about this 1-2 combination. Not just one huge debut, but then another one right afterward. And then you've got Danielson and the Jurassic Express and Cage fighting off the Elite. Omega is chased away, and the good guys stand tall as the show ends. Like, man, what an ending. I can't remember the last time in WWE or AEW where you've had like this 1-2 combination of like the Adam Cole one. If it was just that and that's the show ended, that still would have been very interesting and impactful. But then like they bring the crowd right back up and they have them explode with Danielson showing up. What a moment, and just what a huge statement by AEW to get these guys and to have that moment here. But the one thing I had that made me go, about this moment was Adam Cole being part of the Elite, because now it feels like the group is just getting kind of a little too packed, a little oversaturated here. Like, where's Cole going to be on the hierarchy if Omega's the champion and then you got the Young Bucks as well as like the top 3 guys in the group? I mean, I guess you could have Cole going for the TNT championship at some point, but not against Miro. Like, can they just eliminate Anderson and Gallows to streamline things and just put them back on Impact for a bit? Time will tell how this all shakes out, but yeah, I was still excited that Cole was there and where this is going to go with he and the rest of the Elite. I mean, obviously, who knows now, but things are very exciting just for everything, Cole and Danielson. So as I mentioned earlier in this video, all week long I had heard something to the effect of this is the best pay-per-view in 20 years or as good as WrestleMania 17 or whatever, and I was really concerned that this show was going to be overhyped for me going into this thing. I do think to say that it's the best pay-per-view in however many years or whatnot, I'm not going to make that distinction. I think history will judge like that kind of ranking. I think to say otherwise right now, to just immediately jump on and say it's the best pay-per-view ever, bit recency bias in my opinion. But I will confidently say this show was the best of the year so far, and it's damn sure AEW's best pay-per-view in their short history. I'm going to give this an A+ great. I mean, this was a great show. If you take Wight versus Marshall out of the equation, there were 0 duds. I think that, all those other matches were good as a baseline, and the rest were great. This show had a lot of cool moments, not just the match quality, of which it was pretty high, but also those big surprises in those debuts. Minoru Suzuki, Ruby Soho, Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson. Even if some of those were kind of like gimmies or people predicted them, it's still cool to see it, and the crowd reacting to it really made those work more. The crowd ate everything up, and you could tell that what AEW was doing is working. So yes, I will say the show lived up to a certain level of hype. Greatest show ever? Who's to say that? That's totally your, that's up to you. That's your prerogative, eye of the beholder sort of thing. But this show was definitely one that I think, if you like AEW, you can watch and rewatch and not get bored with it. So do check this out. It is a great show for a lot of big reasons. AEW has just gained so much momentum this last month, and it's really peaked here at All Out. And, as good as it is in the short term and the now, and how cool it is to see Danielson and Cole and all these people show up and you don't know where they're going to go, it's really exciting right now. And the only question is, how will AEW handle the momentum going forward from here? So folks, once again, thank you all so much for your patience for me getting this video out as late as it was. I apologize to everyone except the people who messaged me and told me how much of an asshole I was for delaying the show. Y'all can go pound sand, but everyone else here is cool. Anyway, I'm here at the hotel getting ready for Ring of Honor's Death Before Dishonor. By the time this video comes out, we'll just be a few hours away from that on pay-per-view and Honor Club. Go and check that out as well, because this card is absolutely stacked, and you're going to see even more great action at the 2300 Arena in Philly. But until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.